Hi all. So today I'm going to be doing a quick video on my home improvements project. Now this project I've been running for many months now. It's a way of me tracking the progress of my home improvements, renovating my home and keeping it inside Azure Boards as a way of tracking that progress. The reason I'm doing that is partly so I've got something to demo, partly it's also a good way of tracking projects that aren't just software delivery. So let's take a quick look of what this project looks like, shall we? So first of all, we have our boards. Now in boards, we have this concept of work items, and a work item is a component that you can have which contains the details of something that needs to be done. There are several different types of work items. So on this particular screen here, you can see I've got a feature and I've got some product backlog items. I'm going to do another video on the hierarchy of work items another time, but for now let's just check that there are some work items there. Now in my work item view, I can see the ones that are recently created, and by choosing this pull down I can look at the ones that are assigned to me, or I can go and find ones that I'm following or that are mentioned in. I can go and have a look at my activity as well, which are ones which I've been working with. I can look at ones that are recently updated, recently completed, and recently created. I can also go and create new work items of the different types. Now, I did another video on, several videos in fact, on where I did create a different work item of in lots of different ways. This is not the only way to do that. Now I can also go and, in this work item view, open this up in the query view to get my list of activities, or I could change the columns that I can see. Now by changing the columns, I can go and have a look and change the things that are being pulled through from those work items. But if I go back to recently created, I can see these work items here, and then let's go and have a look at the structure of a work item itself. So in this case, I'm going to look at painting the middle floor walls. Now this work item here is of type product backlog item. It has an ID. This 1599 is the ID. That ID is unique inside my Azure DevOps organization and inside my project. But especially at the organizational level. This is currently set to state new. I have a description, paint the walls on the middle floor. I have an acceptance criteria. The walls on the middle floor are now painted. I can put in some discussion, and this gives me a lovely WYSIWYG editor that allows me to put some notes on there and some details around this. So I can put in here, I have the set to come this really soon. I can put a smiley face on there. Now, if I had other people in there in my project that were linked to it, so if my decorator was part of this, I could mention them, which is what the button gives me, and that would mean that they would get a notification about this particular work item. Now, in my other videos where I talked about related work, creating work items, I talked about actually how you could relate them together as well. So this was already related to my hallway gloss work and painting the hallway on the ground floor. This is part of my area path of home improvements property and the iteration for November. Now, another thing that I can do here is I can go and add tags. So I could go and add a tag in here, and it gives me some suggestions of things that are already in this. But I could create a tag here, for example, of decoration. And these tags are free form. I can have as many as I like. And that just means it gives me another way to query my work items to get closer to the things that I want to do. Now, if I save that, that's going to save my work item, and I've got that little comment down the bottom. Now, other important things that we can do here is we can have a look at the history of it, which will show me when I create this work item, and it can show all of the different links to other things. Now, this one's got a single state graph. It's only ever been in a new state, but it's got the commentary here as well. On some of my other work items, which have been around for a lot longer, you'll see the state graph is much more complex. Now I could also go and have a look at the other worked items, and it gives me a link in there, and it's another quick way of adding links to other work items. And there's also the opportunity to add attachments to this. So if I wanted to get photos of before and after, I could have done that in there as well. Now, important piece to mention here is we can follow this work item, and that means that I'll get notifications through whenever anything changes on it, even if I'm not at mentioned of it, or even if I wasn't the owner of it. Now, because I'm the owner, I will get at mentions anyway, but this is a way of following a work item if you're not the owner of it. Now, there are some other notification settings as well, which allows me to go and change this in other ways. We have a whole list of other things here, and this is another lovely part of the UI, which allows us to go and pick out some other parts on here, including going to look at the keyboard shortcuts. I have a couple of extensions in here which allow me to visualize work items, open this in Excel, and add to a portfolio plan. But I'm not going to go into those today because they're a bit more advanced than I want to go into for this video. Now, once we've got our work items, we can actually start looking at them in the context of our boards. Now, Azure Boards itself gives us these Kanban boards to view the work items in their current state, and to actually work on them by pulling them through our Kanban board. Now, remember, all Kanban boards should be pull, not push. So I try to stick to that when I'm doing this. Now, this, as you can see, is currently filtered, so it's only showing me my backlog items. And up here on the top right, we can get the backlog items. We can go and have a look, and I can go and see my epics, all my features, or go back to my product backlog items. And you notice that my my columns change as I go through those boards, because those boards are unique to each one of those types. But and those work items have got a hierarchy that I say as I'll go through in another video. To change the structure of this board, what we can do is we can go and go to the view option, the settings on here, and we can go and change the columns. So at the moment, I have 4 columns set up. I have a new column, I have a purchased column, I have an in progress column, and I have a done column. Now, my done column maps to states of done, which is pretty obvious. My in progress, on the other hand, matches to my state map of committed, because my work product backlog items have multiple different state maps, states that they can be in, and I chose to split out my approved and committed into 2 different states. Now, I can change the definition of done to share that context with other people that are using the product, so they can see what we mean by done as a team. And I think that's a really important piece. Now, another really important piece here is to set my work limit, my WIP limit. So this is work in progress. Now, once I've got that, I have also got swim lanes that I can set here. Now, my swim lanes allow me to have multiple horizontal columns, rows effectively on this. So I've got 2, one for blocked and one for actionable. Now, these aren't automagic. These are manual tools, which allows me to separate what's been blocked and what's actionable right now. I can change these by moving them up, or I can insert new ones up and down there. And to give you an example of what this might look like, so for example, hallway decoration, that was committed and in progress. So I can now pull that across into done because it's now been completed, and that adds it to the top. Now, the hallway gloss work, I have got that in an actionable state, but I hadn't committed to doing it yet. So by changing it from approved to committed, it will reappear over in my in progress queue, or I can drag and drop it, as I did before, from one to the other. Now, the hallway on the ground floor GOS work, let's just say for a second that I've committed to this, but it's blocked for some reason. I can move that up into my blocked queue up there. Now, you might ask as well what this icon set here is for. Well, this icon set here allows me to expand out and add tasks to these. Now, our work item hierarchy, that we've got at the moment, I'm looking at my product backlog items, and these are actually work items of type task. Now, the task work item is the smallest atomic component you can have. It's the smallest work item you can have, and it should be a very specific, singular thing that you want to do. And you'll notice there isn't a Kanban board in the board section for tasks, and we'll come on to where that is later on in this video. Now, another way of looking at our work items is to go into the backlogs, and this is where you will be spending a lot of your time when you're doing your planning. Now, in your backlog, you can have this set up in many different ways. You can see at the moment I've got this set up so that I can see my hierarchy, my work items, how they are linked together. And if we look at some of these as well, we can go all the way down to the actual tasks that are part of them. You'll notice I am not the best at keeping this up to date. So I do have some from August, July and February that still are outstanding. I really should change them. So for example, this one, bottom floor glosswork, I really should get that one sorted and move it into my November sprint. And I can do that, as you just saw, by dragging and dropping it into my November sprint. Or let's do it again, but this time for the kitchen glosswork that's left. I can change that by going into there and then going down to the move iteration and setting it to my current iteration that way round. And that again has changed it. And I can do the same, just keep on repeating this to plan out which ones I want to get done in what sprint. Now, some of the other things I can do here as well, I've got a to-do item. So just as I can in lots of other places in the user interface for Azure Boards, I can go and click on the title for that task and expand it out. And that gives me the same user interface that we saw earlier on for my work item. So I can set that to in progress, because that's my job for this evening to do, and set save and close. Now that's in progress, and I can come back and set it to done once I've completed that task. Now, another way of working with tasks, I did mention this earlier on, but we're going to have a look at the sprints interface. The sprint interface is slightly different. This allows me to choose which sprint I'm in. So this is my November sprint, and it shows me all my product backlog items with the tasks that are associated with them. And if I had any tasks that weren't associated with a product backlog item, but were part of this sprint. This is where we can look at the capacity of our team. Now, my capacity of my team, I'm not actually doing any capacity management, but if I had multiple users in my team, I could add in a capacity for them, set up their assigned activities that they can do, and then that would give me some analytics on the task board to show me how much time I've got assigned, how much capacity I have, and the difference between the two. Now, if I want to move these through, as you can imagine, I can still do it through here as well. If I find one that's ready to go. In fact, no, that one that I moved earlier on, I could do that by just moving it back onto to do, or I can move that all the way across to done, and it would be then set, ready to go. And that's just another way of changing the state, but by drag and drop through the right kind of places you want to see. Now, another thing that we might want to do here is we want to have a look at the queries, which allows us to go into here and actually query our work items to get an interesting view of very specific kind of work items. So for here, I've got work item type is set to any, state is any. Let's add a tag onto here because we had a tag earlier on. We have decoration as a tag. And then when we run that query, I've only got the one work item that I tagged with decoration, but as you can see, this allows us to bring that data through, cut and split it in the way that we need to and want to for our project. Now, I want to keep this a really short video if I can, because I want to bring together just a quick overview and an introduction to using Azure Boards. So the next piece I'm actually going to do isn't inside the Azure Boards component on the left-hand side. It's actually part of the overview, but here I have some dashboards. Now the dashboards allow me to see an overview of my project and how it works. Now these dashboards, this is just an example of some of the things that I've got in here. I wouldn't recommend that this is the best way to set up your project. I think every single project team is going to need to set up their dashboards for them, because it depends upon how your team works as to what the right reporting structure is. But as you can see, I've got some examples here. I've got a cumulative flow diagram running, which is pulling through the data from my work items. I have a home improvements work item here that's just showing me a visualization of my backlog. I have a count of my work items per sprint, and it's showing me actually how many were planned before the sprint started, how many were completed, how many were completed late, and how many ended up being incomplete. And there's some interesting options on that one as well. So if we go to configure for that, one of the great things about this one is that we can actually set at the bottom down here, under the advanced features, we can plan the work items for iterations past when they started. So what that means is, if you don't do the sprint planning before the sprint starts, and I know many teams don't do their planning before the sprint starts, they do it on day one, for example, of the sprint, then you just set that to day one. And then to account for weekends and things like that, you might choose to set that for 2 or 3 at the end to still say, well, I completed it, I just forgot to update the work item until Monday, and our sprint finished on Friday. So those are a couple of hints and tips for you there on that one. Now I've got a couple of other pieces in here as well. So I've got a little table here that's just pulling through my work items by person. I've got my another query here that's being pulled through by product backlog items not closed, by state, and it's just giving me a pie chart of that numbers. And so I've got a few other ones for my home improvement cycle time and my burn down chart of my work items, product backlog items, how many are still outstanding. As I say, this is a relatively easy way of creating dashboards as well, because it's easy to just go edit, look through the list of widgets that we have available, and then you just drag and drop those components on. So you might just drag and drop on a markdown piece there, and then we've got that added in, and we can just click done and we're there. And you can have multiple boards as well, so we can add a new dashboard, and we can then save that dashboard as a team dashboard for a particular team, or we could set this as a project dashboard for everybody inside this Azure DevOps project. At which point, I just wanted to say thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you come back to watch some of my future videos as well. Have a great day.